I got a question for you, Tank. At 147, how does a fight with you and Terence Crawford look?
Damn.
147. Shit, if I
147.
tap that chin, you know he going to sleep.
I already know. I already know
he
he
ain't
is.
got no chance.
I already know he is.
The rivalry between Tank and Crawford continues to heat up in the boxing world, and it looks like these two will be at odds for quite some time. For years, Crawford and Tank have debated who could knock the other out. But recently, the conversation has shifted to who makes more money, and even who has the bigger wife, literally. After Tank made things personal, it was only a matter of time before Crawford and many fans fired back. Now, after Tank hinted at a potential fight between them, Crawford had enough and decided to hit him with the harsh truth. Terence Crawford, out of patience, took to X to send a blunt message to Tank Davis. Stop being scared and fight Shakur. Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis before talking about someone on a level you'll never reach. Those words landed like a left hook.
Put some balls and fight Shakur, Keyshawn, and stop being scared. That's probably why you ran your girl over and beat her ass, because she know you ain't got no nuts, my people. You know? And then right there, Gervonta pretty much insinuated, if I was to fight Crawford, I'll make him look little. Then they both said, yeah, I want dudes to see me and try something. That would be his last going for greatness. And then
Crawford S. Call-out is deeply personal. Shakur Stevenson and Keyshawn Davis are more than just fighters. They are close friends of Crawford, with Keyshawn even being his protege under the guidance of their shared trainer, Brian Bomac McIntyre. But let's be honest, Keyshawn Davis hasn't exactly proven himself on the big stage. His performances against Miguel Madueño and Nahir Albright were underwhelming, to say the least. Fans are also quick to highlight his refusal to face Cuban phenom Andy Cruz, who dominated him 4 times in the amateurs. Despite this, Crawford believes Tank should be at this level instead of constantly mentioning his name. While there's some controversial truth to Crawford's statement, some fans argue...
GervontaDavis speaking about you. Is that ever a possible fight?
Yeah, if he want to dare to be great, he can be like all the other fighters that moving up 2 weight classes and, daring to be great.
You would fight him.
Man, tell him to come up there.
He got to come to win 54.
He said I got a glass chin, so tell him to come and touch it.
Wow.
Tank, unsurprisingly, isn't interested in the 2 names Crawford mentioned. GervontaDavis has built a reputation as a box office superstar. He knows his worth and has no intention of giving Keyshawn Davis the spotlight, especially when Keyshawn doesn't bring a strong fan base or marketability to the table. Then there's Shakur Stevenson. While technically brilliant, Stevenson has been labeled by critics as boring due to his defensive style. Even Eddie Hearn, who signed Shakur in hopes of turning him into a global sensation, may face an uphill battle trying to market him in the U.S. Tank doesn't see a fight with Shakur as worth the risk or effort, especially when he'd be carrying the entire promotional load. Still, Crawford wasn't done. This time, he took things up a notch. In a scathing tweet, since deleted, he went beyond boxing, mocking Tank's character and even bringing up his personal controversies. That's probably why you ran your girl over and beat her ass, because you don't got no nuts and she knows it, Crawford tweeted, ending his message with a laughing emoji. Boxing rivalries are nothing new, but this one has escalated beyond the norm, especially considering the 2 beasts involved. Fighters usually diss careers and fighting styles, but when personal lives and families get dragged into the mix, things spiral out of control. The personal jabs are brutal, showing just how deep this feud has become. Crawford isn't just questioning Tank's career choices. He's attacking his pride. Tank Davis, however, didn't take the insult lying down. This comes after he accused Crawford of chasing paydays instead of greatness. According to Tank, Crawford's decision to call out Canelo Alvarez for a fight in Saudi Arabia is less about legacy and more about securing a massive retirement check. Y'all really think he's chasing greatness? Tank said on X. He's not. That's what he has to do to make decent money. The numbers seem to support Tank's claim. Crawford's last fight against Israel Madrimov reportedly pulled in a meager $75K to $100K pay-per-view buys, a far cry from the blockbuster figures Tank generates with every outing.
Guys who are really, really, really good. and they're not really hell-bent on becoming a star. I put you in that category. I put Terence in that category. Maybe Shakur, where they feel like they don't really want to, like, Terence ain't bothered about game.
Crawford, however, sees things differently. He claims that moving up 2 weight divisions to fight the unified super middleweight champion is about cementing his place in boxing history. Legacy is the word he uses. But Tank isn't buying it. For Davis, Crawford's attempt to jump 2 divisions without first proving himself at 168 lbs reeks of desperation. Fans are divided on the issue. Some praise Crawford's ambition, while others side with Tank, believing that the Canelo fight is more about money than legacy. The tension between Crawford and Davis isn't new. It dates back to the aftermath of Crawford's dominant victory over Errol Spence Jr. As Crawford celebrated becoming the undisputed champion, Tank Davis made headlines by claiming he could beat Crawford at 147 lbs. Crawford, appearing on the Breakfast Club, responded calmly but confidently, reminding everyone that there are levels to boxing. If he comes up to 147 thinking he's just going to knock Terence Crawford out, he's got another thing coming, he said. The response was measured.
That fight, is it even possible at a catch weight?
No, ain't no catch weight. You come up to 47.
Not even entertaining a catch weight.
No, I'm not.
He's a champ though too, undefeated.
And what champ? Come on, man, tell me what belt. You know boxing. You forgot Devin Haney is undisputed. Devin Haney got all the belts. He the champ. Nobody else the champ. I'm gonna come up here where the big boys at.
Despite the heated exchange, a fight between Crawford and Tank seems unlikely. Crawford has his sights set on Canelo Alvarez, a matchup that offers both legacy and financial rewards. Meanwhile, Tank Davis already has his next opponent lined up, with a fight against Lamont Roach Jr. scheduled for March 1st at the Barclays Center. This leaves fans of both fighters wondering, is this all just talk, or could there be a future where Crawford and Davis step into the same ring? Adding to the intrigue are the controversial takes surrounding this rivalry. Some fans and analysts argue that Crawford is punching down by engaging with Tank, who competes at 135 lbs. With Tank being significantly smaller, a fight at 147 or beyond would be a mismatch.
Ego. Like
Others,
somebody like Tank say, 147, I knock Bud out.
Well, he just talking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he got the confidence in himself that he believed that he can do that because he's been knocking all these fighters out that he's been in the ring with. You know, so no knock to Tank, but there's definitely level.
The issue of marketability. Crawford may not be the pay-per-view draw that Tank is, but his accomplishments speak for themselves. Should legacy outweigh popularity in the boxing world? Tank, on the other hand, is no stranger to controversy. His critics accuse him of cherry-picking opponents and avoiding the toughest challenges in his division, including Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. Crawford's comments about Tank being scared resonate with those who believe Davis has yet to prove himself against the very best. However, Tank's supporters argue that he doesn't need to prove anything. His record, knockout power, and ability to sell out arenas speak for themselves. Tank have debated who could knock the other out. But recently, the conversation has shifted to who makes more money, and even who has the bigger wife, literally. After Tank made things personal, it was only a matter of time before interview on Terence Crawford has ended 31 of his 41 bouts inside the distance. Gervonta Tank Davis boasts 28 knockouts in 30 fights. If these two wrecking balls of the sport ever collided, it would be pure chaos in the ring, and chaos is where legends are forged. Crawford's precise dismantling of opponents stands in sharp contrast to Davis's jaw-dropping detonations that seem to materialize out of nowhere. Yet both men share one undeniable truth. When they smell blood, the fight is as good as over. Brian Norman Jr., a fighter who has sparred with Crawford, described firsthand what makes him so dangerous. He painted a picture of a younger version of himself being taught a painful lesson in maturity by Crawford. He doesn't necessarily one-shot people, but what he does is he just beats you up. and then he kills you, Norman said, explaining how Crawford systematically breaks down his opponents with pinpoint accuracy. On the flip side, Norman had the highest praise for Davis when it came to raw, unfiltered power. As far as one shot, who got it? I got to give that to Tank. But here's the key difference. Crawford's brilliance lies in his ability to adapt on the fly, switching stances, exposing holes, and making real-time adjustments. Davis, while possessing underrated ring IQ, thrives more in chaos, whereas Crawford is the ultimate puppeteer, pulling the strings until his opponent is an unwitting participant in their own demise. Roy Jones Jr. weighed in on this hypothetical matchup and didn't hesitate to praise Davis's explosiveness. That's the one thing Tank's got that Errol Spence didn't have. In boxing, an explosive fighter can go a lot of places. Jones's word.
See, what I like about Tank is Tank brings something different. You know, back in the days, everybody had something. Muhammad Ali was a mover boxer, George was a puncher, Ernest Shavers was a puncher. Everybody had something they brought to the table. Larry Holmes had a jab. Mike
has ventured into the most treacherous waters and emerged not just unscathed, but utterly dominant. Davis, on the other hand, has feasted on names like Leo Santa Cruz, Ryan Garcia, and Rolando Romero. Impressive, sure, but not quite the murderer's row that Crawford has faced. And yet, that's precisely what makes this fantasy matchup so intriguing. Davis has a habit of making elite fighters look ordinary, suggesting he might be more than capable of rising to Crawford's level. Physically, Crawford would enter the fight as the naturally bigger man, boasting a longer reach and a frame.
10, maybe even your top 5.
Where do you rank Terence, in your opinion?
I put him in the top 15, maybe the top 10, because he definitely has the skill of a top 5. Just that he hasn't had the opposition that some guys were able to get, and that's not his fault. He just made one of the best fighters in his weight class look like nobody. That's pretty damn good.
Davis, while shorter and more compact, has never struggled to carry his power through weight classes. Still, fighting someone like Crawford at 145 lbs would push him into uncharted territory. Stylistically, Crawford's versatility would be his greatest weapon. His ability to seamlessly switch between orthodox and southpaw could frustrate Davis, forcing him to think instead of react, a scenario where Tank is arguably at his weakest. But let's not pretend Davis is some mindless slugger. His calculated destruction of Ryan Garcia, capped off by a perfectly placed liver shot, is proof of his ring intelligence. Davis doesn't just throw punches, he sets traps. The real question is whether he could set a trap for someone as seasoned and cerebral as Crawford. At the same time, we can't ignore the intangibles. Davis has that X factor, the ability to end a fight in the blink of an eye. He doesn't need to win rounds, he only needs a moment. Against someone like Crawford, that's a dangerous weapon to have. Crawford, for all his brilliance, has been touched before. Jose Benavidez Jr. found early success in their fight, and Egidijus Kavaliauskas even managed to wobble him. If Davis connects clean, it could spell the end, no matter how dominant Crawford had been up to that point. Ultimately, this hypothetical clash would boil down
405. There you go.
These aren't easy questions to answer, which is why the mere idea of this fight sets imaginations ablaze. The big hitter from Baltimore, Tank Davis, has claimed in the past that he would knock Crawford out, perhaps a bit of tongue-in-cheek bravado. But the bigger man, Crawford, has warned him not to punch above his weight. That's the kind of trash talk that fuels debates, and in this case, it's warranted. Davis may have the edge in raw power, but Crawford's mastery of the sweet science makes him a nightmare for any opponent. The truth is, both men would step in.
Keep turning, step around. Keep turning.
The outcome would depend on who could impose their style first, Crawford with his suffocating control, or Davis with his explosive chaos. While a fight between these two may never happen, the hypothetical battle lines are clear. It's a clash of two fighters who each define clinical excellence in their own way. Davis with his raw explosiveness, Crawford with his calculated brutality. It's the kind of fight that would leave fans divided, debates raging, and the sport richer for the mere thought of it. Terence Crawford has finished 31 of his 41 bouts inside the distance. Gervonta "Tank" Davis The debate surrounding Crawford and Davis isn't just about their potential fight, it's also tied to the growing involvement of Saudi Arabia in boxing. While some fans, Crawford and other boxing figures, have criticized Tank for resisting this new wave, others are actually thanking him for trying to keep boxing as it was. Even Tim Bradley recently voiced his respect for Gervonta "Tank" Davis, praising him for not bending to the influence of Turki al-Sheikh like many fighters heading to Riyadh. Bradley, never one to mince words, openly commended Tank's decision to stay true to his roots. That's why I respect Tank. Hey Tank, you gotta